presentation was recorded live in Cincinnati, Ohio, for CALLERLAB's 25th Annual Convention. This is tape 4, presentation of T2000 proposals.
In our session, the way we're going to run this is this morning we have 6 panelists who are going to come up on the stage and address the pro side and the con side of the T2000 issue. During the morning session, we want you to listen carefully to what they have to say. We will go through all 3 proposals, and please understand these are not 3 proposals. These are 3 parts to 1 proposal. 3 parts to 1 proposal. It is not 3 proposals. I'm going to just merely moderate this session. That's all my purpose is. I'm going to read each part of the proposal as the panelists come up here. The proposal read as follows: be it resolved, the members of CALLERLAB agree in concept, and that's all this is a concept, to establish and endorse the following set of dance programs that may eventually replace the existing basic, mainstream, and plus dance programs. The exact names of the herein programs, as well as the program content, implementation, and ultimate disposition of the existing basic, mainstream, and plus dance programs will be determined 1 year hence by another special ad hoc committee to be named Target 2000, reporting directly to the Executive Committee. The herein proposed dance programs will not be initiated and implemented sooner than January 1, 2000. It is the express intent of this proposal that the general membership have the ability, by way of a vote at the 1999 CALLERLAB Convention next year, to ratify the work done by the Target 2000 Ad Hoc Committee, which will be presented to the membership at that time by the Board of Governors, or to reject such work, in which case the existing basic, mainstream, and plus dance programs will remain in force. The proposed dance programs shall be structured as follows. And our first 2 panelists, and maybe I should introduce them first of all, from Hempstead, New Hampshire, Jim Mayo. And from Herndon, Virginia, Mike Jacobs. These 2 panelists will discuss the pro and the con side of the first part of the proposal. Proposal number 1, and again, this is 1 proposal but 3 parts. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm absolutely correct. Thank you, Mr. Garvey. The first part of the proposal is as follows. The proposed first dance program shall contain calls from the existing basic program list that can be readily taught in 12 sessions, each session being 2 hours in duration, from standard applications only. That is the first part of the proposal, and taking the pro side of the argument from Hempstead, New Hampshire, Jim Mayo.
Thank you, Jerry. Mike and I had some discussion in preparing for this session, and Mike came up with a very neat breakdown of the issues we face, and we are both going to stick with that same set of headings. First, the question can be asked, do we need this program? Then, is the program workable? What's the significance of it? How does it really impact us? And what are the disadvantages? The first point in that list is, do we need this proposed change? The ad hoc committee has sent one message very clearly. They believe that some change is needed. It's clear in the minds of the committee that, at least in the United States, what we have now is not working. These proposals, all of them, are in some major part an attempt to focus our attention on the issues we are facing. The proposed changes are intended to get our attention and to give us a rallying point that we can all get behind with enthusiasm. It has long been my view that modern square dancing has become too complicated. A recruit isn't welcome in our present activity, again, at least in the United States, unless they are willing to be as excited about our puzzles as we are. They must commit to a couple of years of twice-a-week dancing if they want to be comfortable at the available dances. As an aside, my trips to Germany over the past couple of years suggest to me that that problem may not be too far away, even in Germany. If the proposed P1 program could stand alone and be widely supported and used by callers, it would have a good chance of expanding the appeal of square dancing. I think it would probably include more calls than I think can be taught adequately in 12 weeks. But it would certainly be easier as an entry point that I'm sure we need. I have no doubt at all that the calls that are selected will allow me to call an easy, entertaining dance. That easier, entertaining dance will, I am sure, appeal to a wider group of potential customers than we now reach. That dance would also feel like what I know as modern Western square dancing. Is the program workable? I believe it is. But it will take a change of attitude for most callers. I personally would be happier if P1 included almost all of the present basic program. I also believe that if we pass this set of proposals, the committees that choose the calls will keep most of the present basic. I don't believe that list can be taught adequately in 12 weeks. Recently, I called a basic dance to about 3 squares, which included 2 couples currently in class. I filled an evening with dancing that the experienced dancers found enjoyable. I think that capability is all we need to call a program workable. Will callers accept such a program? I'm afraid that will only happen with a drastic change in attitude. On the other hand, I believe that without such an attitude change, we might just as well throw in the towel now. We must stop insisting that anyone who wants to square dance has to accept the caller's desire to make it challenging. Otherwise, we are doomed to a steadily shrinking customer pool. We have to believe that easier dancing is fun. Right now, we don't believe that. Unless we can believe that easier dancing is fun, we will continue to drive away a huge group of people who could have a wonderful time square dancing. The next point that Mike addressed was significance. Will our product appeal to a wider market if we make the proposed changes? I think the answer to that could be yes, if we can accomplish the attitude change I referred to earlier. Will it appeal to the new kinds of young people that are populating our country? I don't know. I don't think anyone can know unless we give it a try. On the other hand, I'm sure there is a huge market available to us. They need what we have to offer, and they would enjoy it if we could only make it a little less demanding. That market is the baby boomer families whose kids are just starting to leave home. These people have given much of their life to raising their kids. Some are divorced, some are single. All have been so busy that they've had no time to think about their own recreation or finding friends other than the parents of their kids' friends. They are about to have some time, and their financial strains will diminish. They're going to want some friends and something that they can do with those friends. Nobody has a better answer to that need than we do, if we can stop making them jump through so many hoops to get to us. One of the really good things about P1 proposal is that we don't have to wait for several more years while the new programs are fully identified. We can start right now to find out if this has the potential to solve our problems. We can change our attitude and start offering easier square dancing. We have the basic program. Most of it will be part of the new program if that gets approved. We can go home now and start promoting easier square dancing with the existing basic program. We don't even have to wait until September. Mike will discuss the disadvantage. That's the final point that he raised in his list. The disadvantage that might result from the proposed changes. He is concerned, as I am, that revising the programs might cause harm to the existing dancers and potential recruits into the existing programs. Certainly that's something we need to consider. It's clear that existing square dancers are not going to want the proposed program changes. They have been recruited and survived as dancers because they love the complexity as we do. At least they are willing to put up with that complexity or they wouldn't be square dancing. If we're going to offer a new product, it will have to be to a new market. Perhaps that market is available in the new diverse group of folks that live in our country. Certainly square dancing has shown itself popular with other cultures in Europe, Asia, and Australia. But I have no doubt at all that there is an identifiable, available market in the baby boom generation. It's a huge market, and they are just beginning to discover that they need what we have to offer them. Central to the question, does it harm the existing activity, is a question that we have not answered about the proposals. Are they intended to replace the existing programs, or are they intended to supplement those existing programs? Put another way, can we keep the existing programs in place while we experiment with new programs? I'm not clear, and I think there is not yet a consensus answer to this question. The proposals are presented, provide for approving the concept of program change and establishing the content of the new programs without any change to the existing square dance activity. My personal guess is that we will have difficulty reaching agreement on program content. Even with agreement on the proposed new programs, we could offer them for experimentation. We could learn whether the changes make recruiting and retention easier while not affecting those groups that are having success with the existing programs. With respect only to the proposed first program, the one we call P1, this would not make any noticeable change, since there are virtually no basic program groups in existence now. Certainly the few basic groups that may exist do not include a significant share of people who travel and might be troubled by the lack of consistency from one group to another. As a result of this thinking, I believe that we could adopt the proposed P1 change with little risk and with some potential that we might actually focus the efforts of those interested callers on a new type of program that might bring square dancing to a whole new group of potential customers. In summary, let me make a few important points. Square dancing is in need of some change, not only in the United States, but I believe in other countries as well. My personal judgment is that the most needed change is a new attitude that says square dancing doesn't have to be challenging to be fun. I believe that the proposed P1 program would be a much better entry point into square dancing for busy people than either the current mainstream or the Soft Plus programs now in general use. To make the new program work successfully will require callers to support it and use it. We must make dancing available using the new program. If you really believe the change is needed, start now. Whichever way the vote on the ad hoc committee proposals goes, we can do it now.
Jim Mayo. Okay, again, the proposed first dance program shall contain calls from the existing basic program list that can be readily taught in 12 sessions, each session being in 2 hours in duration from standard applications only. Jim addressed the pro side of this issue. Now we're going to turn this over to Mike Jacobs, who will address the con side. Mike?
Thank you, Jerry. An old U.S. cavalry saying states that if the horse is dead, dismount. Is the current CALLERLAB system of programs dead? Despite the claims made in the whereases of the T2000 proposal, we may be identifying the wrong horse to dismount. let's look at the P1 proposal on 4 basic issues in a little bit different order than Jim presented: workability, significance, disadvantage, and need. First, workability. Square dancing is a living language. One need to only look at the flags in the CALLERLAB display outside to recognize the international nature of our language. It has structure and grammar and meaning. Most of the major old world languages had academies that set up rules for their languages. For example, in France in 1635, the Académie Française was established to give the French language definite rules, and it still functions to this day as a government department to assure the purity of the language. Of all the world's languages, only English, and especially American English, evolved without an organized approach because of the perceived threat to individualism, and this points to the crux of the problem of workability that Jim identified: attitude. European societies had a long history of working together for the social good. The reason the CALLERLAB programs have worked overseas has not been because of younger dancers, better teachers, or longer hours, or anything else you might dream of. It has been because their calling communities have worked together in a unified effort. On the other hand, let's observe the heroic characters in American folklore: the lone frontiersman, the high-noon gunfighter fighting wrongs and righting wrongs by himself, the independent small businessman parlaying hard work into a large business. Our own tradition of individualism is a barrier to the workability of this proposal. This proposal will only work if we pull together as one group with no exceptions. So you ask, how did the original CALLERLAB programs come into being? Well, the answer is through attrition. We outweighted those people that would not change, and we accepted the casualties they caused. And those original programs were placed into a vacuum. Now we're looking at uprooting a 20-year-old system which does not enjoy the luxury of absorbing the casualties any change would cause in both dancing and calling communities. Second, let's talk significance. Assume momentarily that we leave here united on one last crusade to increase our numbers. Where do we find the significant new number of dancers given our current methods of recruitment? This proposal addresses this issue only through shortening the length of the initial teach. According to the Statistical Abstract of the United States, in 1997, there were 264 million Americans. 89 million were under 19. 32 million were over 65. 14 million adults were so severely handicapped as to be unable to walk. 74 million Americans were of African American, Hispanic, or Asian descent, and 44% of the adult population were single, widowed, or divorced. All of these groups had not been high on our recruiting list for square dancing. Let's face it, in the main, dancers recruit dancers. Unless they become convinced to carry a new message to new communities of people, square dancing will continue to be the world's best-kept secret, no matter how we package it. Third, let's look at disadvantage. So we leave here. We're united on our crusade, and we infect every dancer with the urge to overturn every rock, look in every nook and cranny, and Shanghai people to open houses. And it works. Hundreds of thousands of new dancers flood the square dance world with 12 lessons under their belts. Are we prepared? And more importantly, are the dancers prepared to accept the existence of the casual dancer? Now, not the typical loyal convert who shows up week after week, but according to the proponents of this program, the busy people of the world who cannot make long-term commitments of time to learn under our present structure. If we do not accept these people for who they would be, that is, someone who dances for recreation once every couple of months, then three things will happen. One of three will. A, there will be no place to dance, and they will drop out. B, there will be a few places to dance, but they'll be looked down upon as second-class citizens rather than the prized, fresh new blood that we desperately need in this activity, and they will drop out. Or C, they will be told if they take just 12 more weeks, they can find more outlets for their casual, non-demanding activity, and they will drop out. So we end up creating a large number of dropouts whose only knowledge of square dancing is that we can't deliver what we promise. Square dancing will no longer be a well-kept secret. It'll be a well-known fraud. Finally, need. Undoubtedly, this activity has needs, and we must make plans to meet those needs. The question is, do we need this plan? Earlier I made reference to the need for dismounting a dead horse. The dead horse may not be the CALLERLAB programs, but our current methods of recruitment. I'm sure that the typical response of the general public to their first invitation to go to a square dance has not been, how many lessons will there be? If we had full-page ads in every major newspaper and magazine in the United States touting lessons slashed to 12 weeks only, the Psychic Friends networks predicting 12 weeks of lessons, Jerry Springer bringing on dancers taught in 12 weeks, all of these great media events will produce in the general public the reaction of, so? We are experts in choreography and the art of dance teaching. It's natural to try to manipulate the tools we are expert with, the lists. But we can't throw lists at the source of our problem. There have been recent successes in bringing new people into square dancing by taking a flexible approach with the current system, as evidenced by the multi-cycle program. Square dancing should be like the other living languages. It should hold itself in a state of equilibrium while changes take place within it. It should be like the tide, which always and inevitably changes, but never progresses while it ebbs and flows. It never stops being what it is, the ocean. One concluding observation. At the mini-lab, Jim voted against this proposal while I voted for it. We still feel that way. Don't laugh, but neither of us are unethical in arguing for the other side. Our positions have in common our care and love for square dancing. The only truly ethical way to make a decision is to be able to argue both sides of it. Take the time over the next few days to seek out people of an opposite viewpoint of your own and try to understand their reasoning. Don't debate them. Understand them, because we've all shown how much we care by being here. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Jim Mayo and Mike Jacobs. Thanks, guys. All right. Mike and Gregg, as you were just made aware, Jim and Mike actually took a different side than the way they voted. Like I said this morning, I want you to listen carefully to both sides. Try to put yourself in the position of being for or against, and listen to the discussion. Both of them, I thought, had very good points to both sides of this discussion, and I'd like to bring our next panelists up. They're going to talk about Phase 2, or Program 2, of the proposal. All right. The next panelist from Thousand Oaks, California, Mike Seastrom. And from Colorado Springs, Colorado, Gregg Anderson. They are going to discuss the second part of the proposal, and I will read that to you. The proposed second dance program, P2, shall contain calls that are currently listed in the existing mainstream and plus programs, or calls from the basic program that were not selected for inclusion in the first program. If any, that can be readily taught from the standard applications in 12 additional 2-hour sessions. Again, I didn't read that very well. The proposed second dance program shall contain calls that are currently listed in the existing mainstream and plus programs, or calls from the basic program that were not selected for inclusion in the proposed first dance program, if any. They will be readily taught from the standard applications in 12 additional 2-hour sessions. And for the pro side of the discussion, I'm going to turn this over to Mike Seastrom.
Thank you, Joe. I should start by saying that unlike Jim and Mike, Gregg and I chose not to discuss the issue with each other. Gregg is a longtime debater from his high school debating team, and one of the worst things you do as a debater is to expose your side or argument to the opposing side. When I saw Gregg's post on the internet, I thought, I am in big trouble. Anyway, I think that the second part of this T2K proposal is probably the most critical because it speaks to the dancer that is dancing today. At this time, we have 2 separate destination programs for our recreational or club dancer. We divide these dancers at our festivals and our conventions. We have plus tips at mainstream dances, and we separate and we categorize these people that are in attendance at a single event. Often the mainstream hall at a convention or a festival is not mainstream at all. It's actually brand new dancers that are at their first or second convention or festival. P2 is designed to encompass the largest majority of the dancers that are in our activity today and embrace these dancers by containing as many of the calls currently being danced by them as possible. P2 is intended to be developed recognizing the needs of these existing dancers currently dancing the mainstream and plus program. The changes proposed will be made so as not to alienate, disenfranchise, or drive these people away. That's why P2 was set up the way it was. Again, P2 will be developed to reflect what is currently being danced by these recreational dancers. And I think we all know what we're talking about, recreational versus hobby dancers. We know that the vast majority of people dancing only the mainstream program or only the plus program have very little exposure to extended applications of these calls. They like a smile. They like to have the wind in their face. They like the music in their ears. And the puzzle portion of our dance is really only enjoyed by these people in very small, discrete doses. Most of the callers are aware of this, and most of us know how to keep these dancers happy and keep them dancing. And we keep the mood light, and we keep the intensity level down. Recreational dancers in the mainstream and plus clubs today enjoy the standard application approach, and our new dancers can succeed, and they can be included here. And that's the key. Our new dancers can succeed and be included in these programs. The problem is that after a few years of dancing, some of these recreational dancers, either in mainstream or plus clubs, want just a little bit more positioning, or they want just a little bit more extended applications, and one of 2 things happens. These dancers become the officers of the clubs, and they push the board or the callers to, well, let's bring up the level a little bit, huh? How many of you have been in that situation where the club officer comes up to you and says, well, let's just bring up the level? I mean, here we like to keep up the level a little bit. Or they leave the club entirely, and unprepared they go on to another program, never to return and never to recruit new dancers into square dancing. T2K in its present form is a long way from being final. Let me say that again. T2K in its present form is a long way from being final. I've seen on the internet and I've seen in writings and in articles how we can all extrapolate exactly what's going to be on these programs. This is not cast in stone. We need to stop segregating our existing recreational dancers and bring them together. It makes economical and it makes social sense. And that's what P2 is all about. And like I say, the list, in my opinion, is not the biggest problem. It's not the problem in many areas of the world. And we talked about image of square dancing. We talked about a modern approach to marketing. And there is a proposal in front of the board this week that involves a major effort in a long-term project to market and change the image of square dancing. And that's a whole different issue. What we're talking about here is the programs. And I say that the proper use of our programs can be a major factor in dancer retention. We're talking about dancer retention. So let's take a look at the long-range goal of retaining dancers, because T2K can help. Thank you.
Mike Seastrom. Okay, on the opposing side, and this was kind of fun, and you can tell everybody up here, we've had some fun doing this, because it's kind of fun to discuss things that maybe are a little controversial. There was an email post to the board that would like that everybody that's going to be on this panel should share information. And Gregg sent back, no, no, no. You don't do that. So here is Gregg's attempt
to give us the con side of the article with Mike. Gregg Anderson.
Thank you, Jerry. I would like to clarify one thing. Mike somewhat misinterpreted my message. He said that I was a long-time debater. What I really said was that a long time ago I was a debater. High school was a long time ago. Yes, that's what I said. So I just, distinctions like this I think are important. So I just wanted to make sure we were on firm ground as to what the premise was. The basic assumptions that we are utilizing in P2, I believe, are flawed. I do not believe I'm the only one who thinks that the assumptions are flawed. There have been many excellent articles written in the past year. There have been many excellent messages on the internet and through email from other people. Hopefully you have had an opportunity to see and read many of those. And to echo in a little bit different way the leading comments that were made for this session, I read a quote just recently in Reader's Digest that knowledge comes through study. Wisdom comes through listening. And I would hope that we all are gathered here to seek wisdom, because wisdom is what we truly need to come with the right decision that is going to be good for square dancing. Perhaps not the right decision from our personal viewpoint in our local program, perhaps not the right decision that is right for us because we make a full-time living doing this, which I do not. I'm just trying to put myself in different positions, but to seek the wisdom. And I don't think that the assumptions that are the basis for P2 of combining basic and mainstream are necessarily sound assumptions. I'll come back to that a little later. One of the other perspectives that I think that we need to take, and this was really brought home to me in 1994 when I was privileged to be one of the representatives for CALLERLAB at the first mini-lab in Europe outside of London. At that mini-lab, I met with and was able to share ideas and hear new ideas from 110 callers in, I believe it was 12 or 13 different countries present at that mini-lab. I was driving down the street a few weeks ago and saw a bumper sticker that I had seen many times before, but it took on new meaning. The bumper sticker is, think globally, act locally. Not a bad thought. And I quite honestly don't even remember what the original author of that bumper sticker intended. But I turned that around because I think we run the risk, because we have what has been perceived and publicized as a problem in the United States. I think we have the risk of thinking locally and acting globally, because we are seeking an answer here that will impact square dancing worldwide. So I think here's where we need the wisdom. If I can be convinced with my one vote during this convention that I should change my position, then I will do so, because it is important not only to seek wisdom, but to seek unity and to find some common ground that we can all agree to for the future. I personally do not feel, and it is my task to take the con side on P2, that this is the answer, because I believe that we, by combining the essential elements of mainstream and plus, will disenfranchise our existing dancers. As we have seen our dancer population shrink through our clubs or the festivals that maybe you're fortunate enough to call, it becomes very clear that what we need to do is retain the dancers. It's a lot easier to retain an existing dancer, as difficult as that may be, than it is to get a new dancer. I am very much concerned that the proposals of P2 will drive away a certain element of our existing dancers. I have been fortunate in my life to have been placed in some excellent environments where I have not had to face some of the problems that other people have. I was fortunate when I was learning to call 35 years ago to have come under the influence of Dorothy Shaw when she was still alive, and to gain some of the philosophy of Pappy Shaw. I have been fortunate to call in a strong mainstream area. So I have not been totally free of the pressures that we all feel from people who want more. But I have been fortunate that I have not had to exist in the calling environment of the East Coast or the West Coast, certain other parts of the country where the dancers, I gather, have essentially dictated to the callers, this is what we want you to do. How much of where we have gotten to that makes P2 look appealing is because we forgot we were leaders. Or maybe we didn't forget we were leaders, but maybe it just took a little too much courage to be a leader and not as much courage to be an entertainer, because being an entertainer was more fun. I'm not saying that to point the finger at callers on the East Coast or the West Coast. I'm just saying it as an example of I have been fortunate being in a strong mainstream community. Sure, I have gotten the pressures from my club members to, why don't you call some plus? This pops up over the years. It has even popped up before plus was the name assigned to it. I have been fortunate to be able to resist them by trying to explain to them why I take the leadership position that I do on that. I have been fortunate because they have not come back to me and say, well, if you don't do it, we'll hire another caller who will. I realize that is a reality of life and may well be a reality in some of the other places in the country where soft plus is the norm. So I am, again, not criticizing individual callers. I have been blessed with an environment that has not presented me with quite those challenges. Another thing about the P2 concept is I do not believe that an experiment, and I regard P2 as an experiment, is an appropriate thing for a major overhaul of what CALLERLAB programs are about. Over the years of the 25 years of the CALLERLAB conventions, we have had many spirited discussions. And as Jerry mentioned in the opening remarks, they have been discussions of philosophy, not attacks on individuals. But one of those discussions many years ago had to do with the 25-week Learn to Square Dance list that was being circulated around the country. My concern, which I vocalized at the time, and I can see some parallels to this, are that if we are not all in agreement as to what the problem is not it possible that a solution is an experiment? I think we can ill afford an experiment that we do not certainly know what the outcome is to be. For that reason, I am against P2, the combination of mainstream and plus. If we as a body can go out of here this week, and if I can be convinced to change my vote, fine. But if we as a body can find common ground that we all can find solace in, that we can then go back as leaders, not only immediately, but in the years to come as whatever the outcome is modified, then we will have served the activity in a leadership capacity quite well. I'll close with this, there were two other articles that drew my interest. One was an article that Ed Foote wrote in the Club Leadership Journal that talked about looking at the big picture. Maybe lists aren't the problems. He referred to an article that had been often quoted from Psychology Today talking about the change in the makeup of the U.S. social structure. People changing from the 70s of maybe doing group activities to the 90s of wanting to cocoon within their home, the pressures of work, etc., maybe wanting them to do things other than group activities. Proof of this in that Psychology Today article talking about bowling and many other examples. If that is part of the problem, maybe lists aren't the problem and P2 would not be the solution. There was another article in the November 20th Wall Street Journal of this past year that talked very much along the same lines about how leisure time is very much difficult to come by in the American work ethic because of downsizing, etc., all the problems that are associated with American society. Leisure time is vanishing. People get more guarded about how they're going to spend their leisure time. Many of them are doing it on individual pursuits. So again, let us use the convention as an exchange of ideas, but let us try to learn enough to apply some wisdom to our solution. For these reasons, I think in identifying the problem, P2 is not the solution. Thank you.
Gregg Anderson. So again, a big hand to Mike Seastrom and Gregg Anderson. Thank you. Thank you both. And we'll bring up the final two panelists. Here they come on the run. Yes.
The pro side's on the right.
I'd like to introduce these two. First of all, from Fremont, California, Kip Garvey. And from, I know it, and from Portland, Oregon, Daryl Clendenin. Very nice. You ready? Okay, the third part of the proposal. No, sit down. I should have introduced Kip anyway. Many years ago, about 9 years ago, I was at a CALLERLAB convention, and this guy walked up and said, "You look like me." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why don't you run for the board?" I said, "Nobody'd vote for me." Thank you very much. I really didn't think they would. The third part of this proposal is, and I'll just read it, the proposed third dance program shall contain the extended applications of all calls listed in the proposed first two dance programs. This proposed third dance program could be taught in no less than 25 additional 2-hour sessions. And with the pro side of this, Kip Garvey.
Thank you, Jerry. I think that we need to, first of all, bear in mind that what's being discussed here is research and development. Research and development along the lines of program design, programs to be implemented and used with our dancers. The decision we made this 3-day convention is not whether we should implement a new set of dance programs, but whether or not this research and development should continue along the lines that is currently going. Now, you've heard from both sides, pro and con, for P1 and what has become affectionately known as P1, P2, and then P3 is the concept of extended applications. It's worthy to note that none of these concepts, P1, P2, or extended applications, P3, is brand new. These ideas have been with us over the 25 years that this organization has been founded and run and organized. The extended applications that we're discussing are closely aligned and parallel to all-position dancing and dance by definition. And those of you who've been around for a while know that those ideas have been exploited in the past. What what is the need? Why does it keep resurfacing? Why does it keep coming around? Why do we keep playing with the notion that dancers somehow, at some point in their dancing education, need to know more than just standard applications? That's a very important question and addresses some of the issues that were brought up in the whereases of this proposal. The major problem that we have with square dancing today in the United States, let me emphasize, is the phenomenal idea that dancers need to rush as quickly as they can from one program to the next. We have experienced since the late 70s in some of our huge metroplex areas, San Francisco, Bay Area, Los Angeles, and a lot of the major cities, a total vacating of the mainstream dance program is gone. The clubs have declared themselves, in some fashion, without much objection from us, by the way, that they're no longer mainstream, that they are plus. And then they pursued that course all the way through. That's occurred in the last 15 to 20 years. What happens in the next 15 to 20 years? Where is this bulging group of our dancing population going to go from here? What is to prevent them from taking the next step, the next obvious step, and saying, plus was sure fun, A1 is where I'm going to be at? We don't have anything in place to prevent this, to discourage this, and to try to convince our dancers that this is not the way to progress through the dance programs. Extended Applications offers us a tool. It's an important tool. Can it be misused? Oh, yes. Like any of our tools can be misused, and I give you as an example our existing dance programs. They're tools also. And if they hadn't been misused over the last 15 years, we wouldn't be discussing this today. So extended applications can be misused, there's no question about it. But extended applications can, if we emphasize it and declare it as a separate dance program, it can act as a buffer and possibly slow down this tremendous rush that will occur, I predict, in the next 10 years from plus to advanced dancing. The risk is the total deterioration of our club structure, period. Especially in areas like San Francisco Bay Area, Los Angeles, and some of the metro areas in which plus dancing represents what the dancers are doing. If that disappears, our clubs are no longer there. Now try to recruit square dancers without any square dancers helping us to recruit, and what do you have? That's a rhetorical question. No need to answer it. We have nothing. Okay? The slowdown of the rush into advanced dancing is a critical factor that we need to address whether or not Target 2000 is the type of dance program structure we want to see in place. Into the next millennium, we are going to have to make changes to our dance programs. I look at envy with some of you in areas where your mainstream programs are working well, where there aren't very many callers. And that your people are having just a wonderful time dancing with whatever frequency they're dancing in. In the area that I live in, high-frequency dancing is the way of life. Dancers don't dance once a month. They don't dance twice a month. They dance 3 times a week. They dance twice a week. The existing dance programs just cannot apply in their current structure in my area. And if I follow my own ethical and moral forces, I'm going to have to do something different from our existing dance programs to keep square dancing alive in my area. What I'm doing is I'm asking you now to consider some of these changes as options that you perhaps can live with and that I am willing to experiment with to see if we can rescue square dancing in these high metro areas, high velocity areas. Timing is a critical thing with the introduction of extended applications. Timing is a critical thing. Dancers do not need to know extended applications from day one. They can live and survive with standard applications. Extended applications is something that they can learn later on. However, there are certain parts of the country and certain parts of the world where extended applications are also needed from day one. And I point to our dear friends across the ocean in Europe, Germany especially, where they feel that they must have extended applications from day one. Can we make Target 2000 flexible enough to accommodate both approaches? Extended applications from the P1, from the very entry level, or extended applications tagged on to the end after P2? I believe we can, because we are in a research and development mode here, folks. This is not cast in concrete. It's not cast in stone. It may not even be 12 weeks or 12 sessions. It might be 15. I'm going to fight hard for that, because I don't believe that we can teach the existing basic program in 12 sessions. And if we continue with this into the future, which is what you're being asked at this particular convention, if we do continue with it, you'll see me hammering my shoe on the table for 15 sessions and not 12. That's one of the changes that I'd like to see. Now, as far as the extended applications goes, it is undefined. And right away, we have many callers who are saying extended applications is this far-out, extreme idea in the use of a particular call. Well, folks, it's just not that way at all. The only clear definition we can form right now of extended applications is that it is anything that is not standard. That's what extended applications is. And that implies a range of applicability. Not just an extreme, but a range. So we need to broaden our thinking about what extended applications means and what it means to us. And finally, regarding attitude, I don't believe that any dance program, the existing dance program, or any tool that we can develop, will have a serious impact on callers' attitudes. That is an educational process that must be ongoing and something that I will continue to fight for in this organization. A reach-out program that we can go out and discuss extended applications with callers. Show them how to change their choreography. Show them how to teach the calls to their dancers. Show them what has been successful in the past with dancers. This Target 2000 proposal offers us the most flexibility that we have seen in the development of our square dance programs, and I urge you to support it.
Kip Garvey. That's yours. Okay. Again, the third part of the proposal is talking about extended applications. We heard from Kip Garvey talking about the pro side of this argument. I'm going to turn it over to Daryl Clendenin to give you the con side. Daryl?
Thank you. I'd like to say up front, when Jerry Reed called me and asked me if I would be involved in this debate, I said, I don't debate. I don't want to debate. I don't mind presenting a particular side of a discussion, but a debate automatically implies there's going to be winners, and if there's winners, there's going to be losers. I think that we need to walk away from this weekend all winners some way. So the discussion should be kept as a discussion rather than this side against that side. Extended applications, the use of the movements from other than the normally accepted formations, arrangements, and combinations. We all know what they are. It's been my observation that most dancers want to know enough about the movements that are going to be called so that they can execute them in a manner that's not going to be embarrassing to them or break down the squares that they're in. At the same time, most dancers really don't want to know enough to take the mystery out of the dance. They want enough to get them by, but they don't want to know everything about it. Part of the fun of dancing is not knowing what's coming next. If it weren't for the continuous possibility of failure in square dancing would be just another dance. The challenge, the new things coming out are what we look forward to in square dancing. I contend that square dancing is like a magician's parlor tricks. Everyone needs to know enough to appreciate the performance. But if you know how the trick is done, the effect is lost. As callers, how do we call? Well, as sight callers, typically, we first judge the flow of the dancers, find out what they can and can't do. Based on that judgment, we add variety to the program. Does the end result change if the dancers have learned a lot of extended applications? Not really. the caller still wants to look for something that will surprise them, be different for them. If they've learned to do a lot of extended applications, the caller just has to look a little harder to find something new and different for them. The surprise still has to be there. Will the dancers find more enjoyment in that? I don't think so. The appreciation of the music and the flow of the dance and sociability all remain unchanged, and the option of adding variety will be more easily accomplished if the dancers have not been taught all the variations up front. If we leave the extended applications untaught to the normal square dancer, we keep the extended applications as a toolbox of opportunity. It then becomes just a little bit easier to dip into that toolbox to supply them with that little bit of variety that every dancer seeks. All of the debate about these proposals leads me to wonder if we aren't experiencing at least two different attitudes or philosophies relating to how we view square dancing as an activity. Some see it as a game for puzzle solvers. Others find the strongest appeal of square dancing to be the music and the feel of dancing. Both seem to agree that sociability is important, but we're not too sure that the two philosophies as such can live in the same community. For the puzzle solvers, callers, and dancers, the list is the activity. Choreography is the reason they dance. They love it. The harder, the better. The music, the flow, the time, and social aspects of the dance might not be distasteful to them, but the pursuit of these things are not the reason they dance. It's also hard for them to understand that others might not get as much enjoyment out of the in-depth choreography as they do. But because there are callers and dancers who share this philosophy, there's a need for dance groups to satisfy their preferences. They're not wrong. Their beliefs and preferences just might not be right for everyone. The second philosophy of square dancing concerns folks that just enjoy the music and the movement of the dance. They're the people that enjoy the club atmosphere and the interaction with other folks. To them, the idea of constantly being challenged by in-depth variety in the choreography is distasteful. These people might not find an occasional bit of puzzling choreography bad as long as it's thoughtfully placed during the program, but they really aren't interested in being constantly barraged by new or creative material. To them, extended applications are just more work than they intend to put into their recreational activity. It's my personal belief that this group is by far the largest. Our enthusiasm for puzzles has caused a lot of our square dancers to give up square dancing, but they still represent a large majority of those who remain. I think that for most dancers, square dancing is just one of the activities that they enjoy with friends. I also think there are many callers who feel this is how square dancing should be, but they're afraid to admit it because someone might think they just aren't capable of handling the puzzles. There's been much said lately, particularly on the internet, for those of you who've been following that discussion, about better dancers and better callers. Just what is a better dancer? Why would anyone want to suggest that the more a dancer knows, the better they are? Are mainstream dancers better than basic dancers? Are plus dancers better than mainstream dancers? Isn't that the attitude that's more or less got us into this situation to begin with? A little more is automatically better? It's my firm belief that extended applications don't make a dancer better or dance more fun. Extended applications are nothing but variety, just variety. The programs are there to help us better entertain the dancers and make it easier for them to travel within the activity. The present programs serve that purpose nicely. We're all familiar with the development of the present programs. We've watched as dancers and callers found the lure of the plus program too strong to resist. Caller used plus calls at mainstream dances to provide variety. This made dancers think they should learn these calls. Whenever callers picked from another established program to provide the variety in their dances, the dancers will be encouraged to investigate that other program. It's because of their natural curiosity and the fact that the callers will almost certainly show their respect for the extended applications as a program that I believe we should not establish it as a separate program. If we create extended programs as a program on its own, we will likely create a mountain that dancers will want to try to climb. You put it there, they're just naturally going to want to try it. But we will also damage one of the best tools that we have for keeping the dancers entertained at mainstream. We'll turn it into the same problem that many people believe the Plus program is now. It may be appropriate to put up a barrier for dancers to climb over on their way to the advanced program, but to make it appear as just another step on the way to becoming a good square dancer could do much harm. If the advanced program callers really want their customers to know extended applications, they should teach it as part of the advanced program, not impose it on the rest of us by making it appear to be something that everyone ought to know. Another problem with the extended applications as a program is trying to define what it means. We've heard loud complaints from some as we established the standard applications, and there we were only trying to attempt to document what everyone could do. In trying to define the extended applications program, we will be trying to select some applications from an almost endless list of possibilities, and no one knows how to do all of them. I personally doubt that such a list could ever be accepted. Even now, the comments that have disturbed me most are those that implied a lack of dedication and willful disregard of the policies of CALLERLAB pertaining to DBD, APD, or EA as extended applications. If, in fact, this extended applications becomes a program by itself, it will have to be defined so extensively that it will leave absolutely no possibility of anyone mistaking its intent. I can't imagine anyone willingly supporting a program specifically designed to allow unfamiliar callers to dictate just how much your dancers will or will not accept. I much prefer to make those decisions based on my own perceptions of the activity as I see it in my own area. The use of extended applications is a tool that I don't want either forced on me or taken away from me. Even though I believe the dancers should have a good feel for the extended applications of the mainstream and the plus before going into advanced, I see no reason why it has to be a standalone program. We have extended applications available to us as it stands now. CALLERLAB has done an admirable job of defining the movements and placing them in programs that have proven themselves to be viable when used correctly. There should be no need to redefine the programs. If we find that we have divided the activity into too many parts, as some suggest, then perhaps we should concentrate on combining and fine-tuning the programs as they now exist. It would seem counterproductive to set about creating another new program. I suggest that we should leave extended applications as they are. Those that want lots can have lots. Those that want a little can have a little. Making extended applications a program doesn't in any way make them more useful. All it does is create another opportunity for callers and dancers to cause separation in our very fragile activity. And in closing to a very long bunch of speeches, do we have a lot of time? Well, I have 3 more pages. Bottom line, if we establish extended applications as a program, callers will use parts of it for variety at their dances. If they use it at their dances, dancers will think they need to learn it. If they think they need to learn it, they will go to a class in it. If they go to a class in it, they will want to dance it. If they go to dances in it, they won't be there to support the mainstream clubs. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Same thing. History repeats itself, gang. Thank you.
All right, and a thank you to Kip Garvey and Daryl Clendenin. Big hand for it. We're going to. Okay, we started a little bit early. We will probably conclude a few minutes early. You'll see in the schedule, I think we eat at 12:15. We're not going to leave just yet. A couple of parting thoughts that I would have for you. And again, I want you to thank Mike Jacobs, Gregg Anderson, Mike Seastrom, Jim Mayo over here, Kip Garvey, Daryl Clendenin. It takes a lot of time to prepare for something like this. Give them a big hand. Truly does. This afternoon, what's going to happen is we will be right back here. We will have all 6 of them appear on the stage. We will have 2 microphones. One is over here, one is here. If it is your opportunity this afternoon to ask questions of the panel, to express your views as to how this proposal appears to you, how it might affect your club, impact your areas, I would like us to consider what Gregg said about knowledge. Doesn't matter which way. About the knowledge. That's what you're here for, is to gain knowledge. And I think you've heard a lot of views from a lot of different positions here. Kip did ask one question when Daryl said, how many of you have followed the discussion on the internet? Do any of you do that? There are a few. There are a few. I would, but I can't find it. I have a little... My computer don't like me. Turn it on, yeah, that'd help. I have a couple of cards here in party, and we will be a little early, but I have a couple of cards here. My wife this last winter was cruising through an antique shop and came across a packet of 35 cards. And in these cards, and I'll just read a couple of parts of it, that I thought was just fascinating. Find the part I wanted. No. You should dance for fun, relaxation, enjoyment, and neighborliness. If you get mixed up, what of it? That's where the fun comes in. Fall back into place and wait for the rest of the call. That's all you have to do. If you don't know what to do, stand still and listen and watch. Then he has pointers to callers. Remember that a caller was originally known as a prompter. Therefore, you will readily see that a caller should be able to instruct the dancers as well as give them the calls. Note, he said to instruct the dancers as well as give them the calls. Remember also, it is the caller that will have to put the dance over. To make a successful caller, you should have a loud, clear, and distinct voice. You must know your call before you start to call it. You must be able to make everyone in the various sets hear you and understand this. Don't let one set get ahead of the caller. Make them wait and get together, and then keep them together. It's a good plan to explain the change that you are going to call after the set's completed, and before you give the music the go sign. You will thus avoid a lot of confusion. Remember this, no matter how much you talk, if the dancers do not understand you, you haven't told them anything. Be leery, you don't like this, be leery of that simple-minded, rather loud-mouthed individual. It's on the card. Be leery of that simple-minded, rather loud-mouthed individual who keeps asking to be allowed to call one. He is not anxious to help you. He enjoys his own noise and wants to be it. You are responsible to the crowd, so don't let anybody spoil the dance. Now, you're not going to believe it. These are 35 of the neatest cards I've ever had in my whole life. Printed, Golden, Colorado, 1942. C.D. Foster. It's the neatest thing I ever did. Remember, we're talking about a program, we're talking about a proposed change. It is indeed a concept. There is nothing concrete, nothing cast in stone, as Kip indicated. It's a concept. Many, many people feel we need change. Your responsibility, your reason for being here is, do we need change or do we not?
That's your decision. We're here to gather the wisdom to decide whether that is indeed what we need to do or if we need to go in another direction. But you are the membership. It is your decision, and that means all of us. Listen to the discussion this afternoon. We will have a pro microphone, con microphone. It is your opportunity to address the panel, to address the people, address the questions that you have. We'll make every effort to try to answer them. But remember, we are the callers, and as Mr. Foster said, we might be the problem. Keep that in mind. I thank you for your attention. I thank you for your time, and I thank everybody here.